if you don't mind, um, and you don't necessarily have to keep this in the video, but I like to start out with a prayer.
Go ahead.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for this day, for allowing us this opportunity to come together, Father, and discuss this plant medicine, Lord. I believe that you created the heavens and the earth, and that everything that's here, Father, is because of your will. Father, that this message may reach people that need to hear it, that need healing, and that they're able to benefit from what we say. Please give us wisdom and put the words in our mouth today to be able to impact in a positive way, Lord. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 All right. We're going to go ahead and start in three, two, one, go. Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast. Today, I have two very special guests. I have my buddy Dennis Ortiz. I've been knowing Dennis for a while now, for over 10 years for sure. But recently, Dennis started looking into some self healing, and his choice is not ordinary to what most people would have chosen, but it's a very interesting way of going into things. And what's funny is that I was already looking into that same type of healing, but I've known Dennis for, like I said, over 10 years. We've been friends, and today he decided that he was going to talk about his experience. And with him, he brought his what, what is Sam to you?
Sam is a good friend of mine now. After going through, this experience in Colombia, we formed this sort of brotherhood with everyone that we experienced this retreat with, and ever since we've been in touch, and we have been talking about doing this podcast. And he is a very admirable person. I really find his story fascinating because he comes from Latvia. Actually, he's not originally from Colombia, but he now
Okay.
resides in Colombia, and he is the founder of La Huera, retreat, where he has helped hundreds and hundreds of people come to healing, including myself. And tell you the truth, Rick, I was skeptical about coming out and telling this story because I didn't know how people were going to take it.
Yeah.
People can be judgmental sometimes,
Yeah.
and this kind of modalities might not. Obviously, they're not conventional at all, and.
Right.
But then I got to thinking more about this. Sam came to me with the idea of doing it centered around veterans and PTSD, and I did some more research, and I just the research is undeniable, and so I didn't think that keeping this experience to myself be doing service to the people that need it. And so what better platform to introduce this than your podcast. You're my boy for over a decade. Most people don't know, but we came together because of music. Actually, I used to do music. I used to rap with this guy, man. And yeah, you probably didn't even know that, Sam.
No, no, I had
Yeah,
no idea.
yes, we did hip hop. I did Spanish. He did Spanglish, and with my brother and everything years ago, right? And so, uh, but Ricky is my friend, my boy. I mean, and one of the few. So I would not have done it with anybody else, but just because I feel comfortable and I feel like I'm in an environment where I can trust and open up. So yeah, Sam, likewise, brother. I appreciate all the healing that I experienced out there in Colombia with you, and thank you for being here with us, man.
What's going on,
Well,
Sam?
thank you for inviting me. So yeah, guys, nice to meeting you, and thank you for inviting me to this podcast. And I always like to talk about our work, our retreat, about ayahuasca specifically. I mean, I can talk about it for hours. So
Can you tell us?
podcast is
Can you tell us your location right now?
We are located 1 hour south of Medellin, Colombia, at this beautiful, picturesque countryside. Let me just show you, give you a quick look around. So it's trees and a swimming pool, and a nice valley behind us. It's a
Wow.
it's a this is our retreat. This is where we receive patients, and this is where our shaman comes from the jungle with his beautiful medicine and with his beautiful tradition. And yeah, this is where the magic happens.
Nice, nice. How,
Literally,
how, ma-
literally.
how many ceremonies do you do? How long are these ceremonies? Wait. Let's hold on. Let's get. So we're talking about ayahuasca. Dennis
Yes.
Dennis went and you did a ceremony of ayahuasca, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So can you tell us what caused you to take this roadway to going to Colombia, Medellin by yourself for one? Because you did go by yourself. I was supposed to go with you, but it just didn't work out for me the way. But you did it by yourself, man. What was it? What was causing you to want to head that direction?
Man, it was actually a personal journey, man. I had been, struggling for some time with just an existential crisis, I guess you could say, right? I mean, just really, really not knowing, who I was, where I was going. At the time, I was struggling with, a separation after 2 decades, and I mean, I was at the lowest point of my life. I had been prior to going, considering and going, for months actually. Me and Sam had been going back and forth in messages, and it was always like, I'll catch the next retreat. Oh, I'll catch the next retreat. But in reality, I would have never done it until I reached that point of desperation. You know what I'm saying? When you get to a point where you just kind of scared of some of your own thoughts that you contemplate in your mind, where it just becomes real. And I had been looking into it because I do research. I do my research prior to getting in anything. I dealt with chronic illness for so many years. I think that led to anxiety and depression, and traditional Western medicine really wasn't helping. I mean, I was on Xanax. They prescribed me Xanax 3 times a day, and I was on 5 different medications at one point for acid reflux and anxiety and all kinds of stuff. And so my health was just going to crap, and my mental health as well. And so I was really, like I said, in desperate need of healing, and not just physically, but mentally as well. And when you've exhausted every possibility, you start looking elsewhere. And like I said, I came across this plant medicine. I've seen some other people's experiences online, and and then I started investigating retreats. Right? Okay, so where do you go? And when I got to looking into retreats, I'm like, man, this stuff is expensive, right? Like, in Costa Rica, it's like cost you almost $5,000 to go a retreat, and even in Florida, about 1,500, and same thing in Iowa. I think it was another retreat that I was contemplating, but I came across, this retreat in Colombia, La Guera, by just a community, just ayahuasca community online. They recommended him, and I reached out to Sam. We connected, and and the rest of it was just sort of like a calling. I wouldn't really. There was just too many things that it's hard to call them coincidence.
Yeah.
That's a little bit in a nutshell of how I came about, ayahuasca.
So when you went to Colombia, did you go straight to the retreat?
Yeah, when I got to Colombia, man, I was in a in a pretty rough mental state. I hadn't slept in 36 hours. I I hadn't eaten a whole lot. The flight was long. Then the drive from Medellin to the retreat was another probably 3 hours. It's an hour away, but because of the roads and up the mountains, and it's rough terrain, so it's hard really getting to the retreat. It's deep in there, you know, and I get to the retreat, and I was the first one actually to arrive. I remember, meeting Sam, meeting some of the spiritual assistants and guides that were there that help with the ceremonies. And I had the pleasure of meeting Tai Gonzalo actually, and I remember this conversation so vividly because I almost backed out. I was there and I was scared, and um, you
Was
know
this prior to actually taking
yes,
the? This is just you getting there.
that's just me getting there, and even Tai Tai just kind of mentioned that I was just carrying too much, and that he needed to do a cleanse before he can serve the medicine, and so he did that. But
Can you what can you explain what that cleanse was?
yeah, but before I get into that, I want to say that I'm a Christian by faith, right? And I was afraid of going through this experience and coming out on the other end, questioning my own belief system. That was one of my biggest things. Is getting in there, and then all of a sudden not believing what I thought was, and so. Um, I talked to Tai Tai. He mentioned about the cleanse. I was already there, so I'm like, so I told him let's do it. And when he did the cleanse, surprisingly, to me it was on the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and so that immediately put me at ease. And and he went through his prayers, and he did the tobacco cleanse as well, and yeah, I felt much lighter after that. I mean, I hadn't slept in a while, so I was just ready to kind of doze off by that time. The ceremonies normally start around 9 p.m. And they last every bit of 8 hours.
So, as soon as you landed, there was you were going to initiate the ceremony,
No, no,
or it
no,
was going to
no.
happen the next day.
No, it was that day. It was that day. Everybody lands. So everybody lands in Medellin. Sam coordinates the trip from Medellin to the retreat, where there is a van that actually goes and picks up everybody that is arriving in town. So I decided to just take a taxi there because I got there earlier. Didn't want to wait around, but you know he coordinates that. That's part of the package.
Okay.
But going back to the price, of this, ceremonies, Sam is one of the most affordable, but also provides the most value because there is so much that you get out of this experience. I mean, you are working together with a Tai Tai that comes from Putumayo, right, from the tribe Inga. This tradition have been passed on for generations. I mean, years before Christ even. He actually plants, harvests, cooks, and serves the medicine, and it's my understanding that they bless the medicine all through the process. So it's more of a spiritual process than it is a psychedelic experience. At least for me,
For you,
for me it was very spiritual in nature. You know.
Dennis,
Hmm.
before people get confused,
Hmm.
you keep saying Taita just so that 99% of people don't know what Taita is. Taita is a Colombian name for a shaman.
That is right. That is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before everyone is like, What is Taita? What is Taita? So
Yeah.
Taita is a shaman. It also means father.
Okay.
Yeah, como tata.
Como tata.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and we could do the Spanglish, guys, because Sam knows
Yeah,
Inglés y
it doesn't matter to me.
Español.
However it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, no, but I like I said, I met Taita and Sam there, and I found, you know, Sam's story fascinating when it comes, because how he came from Latvia to Colombia to start this retreat when he was. I let him tell the story because I think it's cool how you just have this calling in life, and that's what you dedicate yourself to. I remember specifically you saying, "Man, I would do this for free." Because you enjoy it so much, and that's why his price points are so much more affordable than anybody else.
You want to tell us your backstory?
Sure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So before I get into my story, I want to tell a little bit, just to not scare people away too much. It does not take 3 hours to get from Medellin to the retreat. It's just that because Dennis was coming straight from the airport, it gets about that much because first you need to get to Medellin from the airport that's on the other side of the city, and then from the city to the retreat. Plus, it was on a Friday night, which is the biggest traffic. So we actually since then, Dennis, we have improved quite a few things that I've already noticed the differences in what you were describing. Now we start retreats on Monday, so there is no traffic to the outside of the city.
No,
So
I
people
gotcha.
do get here in about an hour and like 10 minutes. And also, you mentioned retreats starting at 9, and like kind of being tired and finding sleep. We actually now start retreat ceremonies at 6 p.m. So that's a couple of things we changed, and I can already see like you've been with us when like 6 7 months ago.
About, yeah, back
Yeah.
in August
So
of
we
last year.
constantly improve, we constantly adjust, we constantly just try to make it better. And also one more thing about what you mentioned, the coincidences, and that there seems too many. And in the world of medicine and spirituality, we call it synchronicities, and it's just one of those very important things to sort of notice when something is seems to be leading you somewhere. And if you a lot of times when you pursue that direction, it takes you to the right place, which leads me directly to my story and how I ended up here. So my background is actually I come from Latvia, which used to be Soviet Union, now is European Union, and my career was actually in engineering. I worked in offshore oil and gas as a marine mechanical engineer, so I was fixing engines, size of a 10-story building, and just working with like oil and that kind of stuff. It's very it was it's a career that provides you with a lot of money. I had a lot of money, but I was really really unhappy because I didn't really like it. It's a soulless job, and that's why probably one of the word circles. Dennis heard me say that, yeah, I would do it for free because I enjoyed so much, especially some parts of the work, like the word circles, where people are sharing their experience and they're coming back from their psychedelic journeys, with knowledge and sharing it with us. And it's like never-ending learning. It's very exciting. So in 2016, I quit my job and I saved up for 1 year of travel. My plan was to learn Spanish, travel all South America because I've never been, and it's always been on my bucket list, starting with Colombia. And then my plan was to try and see if I could find something else to do with my life. So, long story short, I completed all those objectives. I started from Colombia, picked up my Spanish pretty quickly. As Dennis said, I'm pretty fluent as of now. And I traveled to Colombia, then Ecuador, then Peru. Took me about 6 months, and I got called to do a little short trip, to refill my coffers. And when the time came to continue with my trip, I thought I'm going to go to Chile, Argentina, and then Brazil. I actually just decided to go straight to Medellin because this is where I liked it the most, and this is where I this is where, yeah, I wanted to go back to. And the further away I went from Medellin, the less I liked it. Dennis probably noticed how amazing it is here, and the weather. And yeah, so uh, I, for a few years, I would travel in between Colombia and Eastern Europe mostly, until eventually I met my now wife, Steffi, and was settled down. Uh, so about 4 years ago, I first tried the medicine for myself. It was mostly out of the place of curiosity. I didn't really know exactly what it was. I felt the calling, as you say as well, and just so circumstances in life turned that such a way that I had this chance, and it was really like easy for me to go and do it. And then I just I've it's been a very profound experience, but it didn't really ring any bell, or sort of like I didn't really connect with the meaning of everything that I saw. Then a couple of years later, when the COVID started, and after COVID, I was in a very bad state mentally, just as Dennis was when he came to the retreat. So I was pretty desperate, didn't know really what to do, and then I remembered about ayahuasca. So I started drinking it again, and in between, I would go and do it like every weekend. And then I got calling also once again to go to the jungle. And once again, synchronicities just so happened to be a person came into my life that was going to the jungle, and I just joined him and his team. That led me to meeting Gonzalo's brother, because their retreat was organized with him. That led me to meeting Gonzalo. Eventually, it's hard to it almost doesn't feel true, but it just happened step by step. It just unraveled, and I did a lot of work in between, but really circumstances just happened, and I ended up with the retreat. So I could go in detail, but every big event, every big direction that I took, I could tie it up to some synchronicity that just sort of made it happen. And then synchronicity, then sort of chance, then me taking that chance, and then a lot of work in between. And yeah, I think when you're working on something that's your calling, and that's the reason why you're here on this planet, things just happen easily. So long story short, about 2 years ago, we started the retreat, and it started as a hobby first. We didn't make any money for maybe first 8 months, just bring people to my finca where we used to live. Finca, just for those who don't know, it means like an estate, like a little house in the countryside. And then slowly, because we did what we did a good job. People liked us and kept coming back, and we would get more and more customers, or patients, whatever you call it. And then we moved out to the bigger finca where we are now, and went from doing one retreat a month to one weekend a month to 1 week a month, to now on average doing 2.5 weeks every month. And it just seems to be going inevitably to us working nonstop 4 weeks a month.
So you're doing
So
you're doing you're doing two ceremonies a month.
no, so retreat is a collection of ceremonies. We offer two
Okay.
types of the retreats: 1 week retreats, which include 4 ceremonies, and 1 weekend retreat that includes 2 ceremonies. And then people can also come and do 10 days and do 6 ceremonies. That's also another thing we changed since Dennis came. We changed the structure a little bit, and offered a bit more variety. So each retreat is on average, yeah, like 3 ceremonies, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely different, and I kind of like that a lot better. I'm planning to return sometime this year, God willing, and I'll be in the lookout for that. But now that people know about you, Sam, and a little bit about what ayahuasca is, why don't we jump a little bit more into detail what actually ayahuasca is? Right? It's this, uh, you know, powerful entheogenic medicine, right? That is a
Mm-hmm.
combination of two different plants. All right, can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. So ayahuasca, as it's called in Peru mostly, and also Americans tend to call it ayahuasca. In Colombia and in Ecuador, it's actually called jahe. But what it is, pretty much, no matter the name, is a mix of two plants, sometimes more than two, but depending on tradition, our Titus tradition, it's only two plants. So one plant is Banisteriopsis capi, which is the vine itself, which is also called ayahuasca by itself. And then the second plant is, depending on tradition, in Colombia it's chagro or chaliponga, and in Peru it's chacruna, and that's a DMT shrub. So what one component does, one is MAOI inhibitor, which basically makes DMT orally active. So that's what the vine does. And then the shrub itself is the source of DMT. And somehow, thousands of years ago, they figured it out and combined two plants out of like 150,000 plants available in Amazon, which both by themselves are not psychedelic or in any shape or form active, but somehow they combined them together to form one of the strongest psychedelic brews. So that's a mystery in itself, but this is what ayahuasca is. And what ayahuasca does to you is really hard to explain as well, unless you tried it. Because some people say, like in after the retreat, we always try and record little video reviews, and a lot of people say that's like, I could not believe that just one cup of one brew could do so much, could make so much difference in my life and change my mindset so much. But in short, it's a medicine that heals your body, heals your spirit, heals your mind. It's kind of like a complete complete reset, and it's very it works differently for different people. Some people experience as having a conversation with the plant spirit or the god. Some people feel it as emotional releases. Some people feel it more in their body. Some people see visions. But for most, it's a mix of all of those. But in a summary, what it does, it sort of releases all this stored somatic energy, like all this, heaviness from your body, and just resets you. And then you start seeing the world once again as a kid would. Like you really see uh, the world positively. The grass is greener after that, and it also gives you homework, right? So you go and you go into the ceremony with an intention. Let's say, I want to fix such and such thing about me, or about a relationship, or about you name it, whatever problem is you have, and then you get some answers that guide you. And sometimes the healing happens in the ceremony, and sometimes part of it happens in the ceremony, but another part of it is the homework that you do after you come back. And the medicine can tell you, like, quit drinking, or stop behaving poorly, or change your attitude. So it's explaining what ayahuasca is in a 5 minute conversation, or even in a 3 hour podcast, is kind of like watching 20 movies and trying to explain it in one sentence. It's like, it's a world in itself. It's so deep and profound. But I think as this conversation progresses, we'll be able to shed more light and clarify more what it is.
Can you elaborate kind of how your first initial ceremony went? I would like.
Yeah. Every bit of what Sam is saying is spot on. It's very hard to describe. There is a mystic side of ayahuasca that it's hard to put. It's just really hard to put into words. It was. I remember taking the first cup at 9 p.m. Obviously, never done it before. Didn't know what to expect. I was more than anything tired, so I dozed off. But about 30 minutes into it, you start feeling the urge to purge, because ayahuasca is not something that you can retain. It comes right back out one way or another, right? Whichever end. And I purged. I purged it out, and then I lay back down, and I remember.
Were you feeling any mental effects at this time?
No, at this time, I was starting to see, just kind of experience the psychedelic effect of the medicine. Where I was seeing just shapes of the music really that was playing. Because along with
So,
the
starting out, is it anything similar to mushrooms?
It is no,
No.
definitely not.
So immediately you know it's different.
No, it's different.
Okay.
It's definitely different. It's a lot more intense,
Okay.
and you know, psilocybin is a lot more gentle.
Yeah.
Ayahuasca, at least in my experience, it was. In other people's experience, everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
But it just hit me like a bag of bricks, man. I was trying to think about, I'm seeing, the psychedelic effect of the medicines of the rational mind, right? Is just trying to make sense of it, like it's still trying to be in control, right? Thinking, oh well, it's just the psychedelic effect, it'll pass, and trying to rationalize it. But shortly after that, I start seeing just faces, right? And I start seeing the faces of all the people I loved, and then I start feeling everything I ever made and felt. And talk about a level of
You
emp-
start feeling everything you've ever meant and
everything I ever made and felt.
made and felt. Okay.
Yes. So that's a level of empathy that I can't even explain. I mean, they say, you need to step in somebody else's shoes to know where they're coming from. Try crawling into their skin
Yeah.
and really feel what you ever made them feel. The pain, the loss, the sorrow. I mean, all of it at once, intensified, and it's a very difficult night for me, man. I processed a lot of things that that I had a very difficult time processing. I remember.
So was it your choice? Because I'm just asking questions because I've done my own research and different organizations handle the first ceremony different. I heard some ceremonies or some areas or some of the retreats, the way that they do the first night is by telling people to focus on the negative on the first night because they want to feel or they want them to have like a death for a rebirth situation. So the first night in other retreats, it's more of a focus on the dark energy rather than the light energy. Once you get there, this is not the situation.
No, no,
Well, we
Sam.
don't tell people we don't people exactly what to focus on and what to experience. But the way we structured the retreat, our 1 week retreats are 2 day ceremonies, and then there's a break, and 2 night ceremonies, and then there's a break, and then there's 2 day ceremonies. So on the night ceremonies, we do tell people to focus on the intention, to come with the intention. A lot of times it will be, something negative. That's why people are feeling pain about it, and that's why they want to process it. So we want them to go deep in the first 2 nights and focus on themselves and focus on the problem, and as maybe a little bit more of a negative, as you're saying, it's kind of inevitable because at night you don't have distractions and you just go straight inside. And then after 1 day break, we do 2 day ceremonies. And the day ceremonies, because you can see all the beauty around yourself, you sort of connect with the nature, connect with the God, and you're still doing a lot of work on yourself, but it tends to be much more positive. So but we never tell people specifically what to expect or what to focus on. People come with their own intention, and we don't want to in any shape or form sort of misdirect them. And but the way the medicine unfolds in different people is, it's kind of like what we like to say is, it doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. So I'm pretty sure Dennis would not have set his intention on, like, let me go suffer for 1 night and like feel the pain of other people. But if that's what's necessary in his process, that's exactly what's going to happen. So it's kind
Yeah.
of self-guiding, self-directing experience.
Yeah, 100%. I know that now. I know that now in hindsight, but at the time it was just really hard to process. I remember just, going to this sort of like fight or flight where your mind just naturally wants to gravitate towards let's say leaving, right? You don't want to experience this because it's so hard to process. So I really did. I really did have a hard time that night and getting through it, and it took me a while to get over that. And if it wasn't for this fellow veteran of mine that was there, that really just consoled me, throughout that night, it would have been really difficult to get through. So I was grateful for him, and I don't know if you remember, Sam, but I almost stopped at that. I almost stopped at that. It was supposed to be 5 ceremonies. After the first ceremony, I didn't think that I could go through another night like that. And and it was you that told me, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same spot. Give the medicine another chance. And
Mm.
and I am glad I did, because if I'd have stopped then, I would not be sitting here advocating for ayahuasca. You know,
Yeah,
um,
no two ceremonies are the same, and this is one of the most difficult part of our job. When people came so close and they're already at the retreat, and then they're about to give up before having the breakdown, before having the breakthrough, and like getting the healing. It's always hard for us, and we always fight for every person. We still lose some people, meaning some people do still choose to leave, but we always try and do our best to keep them at the retreat, because we know that it's kind of like having ayahuasca experience, especially like in the retreat format. It's kind of like reading a book, and if you just read the first chapter and then say, "Yeah, I don't want to know anything about more from this book," it's really hard to explain that there is a development, there is a progression, there is a resolution to everyone's experience. So, but yeah, I'm glad you stayed, and I'm glad you had your breakthrough, and I'm glad you listened to us.
So was it a fear that overcame?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was my mind was playing tricks on me the whole night, man. I didn't think I was gonna come back, from that mountain, man. Seriously, I'm like, what am I? I was
What,
like thinking, what am I doing in Colombia,
did the
man?
fact that you go by yourself ever play a part in that?
Yeah, it did. Being out there on your own, with nobody that you actually know,
Yeah.
can be there to watch out for you. So you completely surrendering, and
Right.
and with ayahuasca, man, like you're in this, suggestive state where, let's say that, you can be like easily manipulated, right? So it's important that you can be surrounded by people that have genuine intentions,
Right.
and to tell you the truth, everybody in that retreat played a role, in my healing. Not just Tai Tai, not just Sam. It was the entire group, and it was just this cohesiveness with the group, and everybody was just so open. Everybody was just so loving, and I got support and love from complete strangers. That at the time I needed to be picked up, and then just I remember just wanting to feel like consolation, and they were there, and they picked me up when I was down, and I just, saw the goodness in people, and I'm just like, wow, this is truly an amazing experience, and that's why I ended up opening up a little more to the medicine. I've seen also some of their healing as well, where it was, some heal, faster than others. I guess some of us got more stuff that we carry,
Right.
I mean, ayahuasca, in a way, I think is completely different to, these Western substances, where, the Western substances are more like, they're more like designed to, suppress your emotions, numb you, in a way where you don't feel. And ayahuasca is the opposite.
See,
It just
yeah.
brings out and intensifies,
Yeah.
and so that's why it's just not so much pleasant.
Right.
If you're thinking you're gonna come to ayahuasca because you want to have a pleasant experience, and then you're looking in the wrong place. If you come into ayahuasca to do some real deep work and like look in and start trying to figure out things about yourself that you never really knew before, then it is for you, but be ready to deal with some, I guess if you had to say it spiritually, deal with some internal demons,
Right.
I essentially did that, and it was just hard to take a look in. I walked away with a different view of pain with ayahuasca. I remember just always wanting to avoid pain in the past, where I didn't want to even stop to think about, some of my experiences, or even think about, what happened, in my life that, you know, turned into trauma, or whatever the case may be.
Was it more of a reflection of your past, or or did you have in any moment during your experience were you thinking about your future?
I think initially was dealing with my past,
Yeah.
dealing with myself, not necessarily even my past. It was just dealing with this person with the person I was. I became aware of some blind spots of my character that before I didn't know nothing about. Right, my own ego.
Right.
Sometimes, I
Right.
always wanted to be in control. Right, I come from operations. I mean, I was in the military for 4 years, and then I got into logistics and distribution, and so I've always been in roles where been in charge of people and giving directives and things of that nature. So I was always kind of used to controlling my environment, and I didn't realize that necessity of controlling my environment was fear based, and the more I in control I was, the bigger my ego got, and
Right.
the bigger my ego got, the less I can self reflect.
Right.
To a point where it's like you sometimes believe your own bullshit. You know what I'm saying? You believe the narrative in your head, and believe that what you portray is right, and it is not always is. And so that is one thing that I can say that I came out with in my and this experience is just it was a humbling experience that allowed me to see the flaws in my character.
So the reason I asked that question is because, for one, I haven't done ayahuasca, but I have done mushrooms and I've smoked marijuana, and marijuana was one of everybody uses marijuana as a recreational drug on a normal basis, but for me, it's never affected me the same way that it's affected other people. I've always had patterns with my use of marijuana because at some point it got to the point where it was a distraction. It was no I was no longer using it for the right reasons, and in certain parts of my life, it was is the one thing that gathered all the things that were scattered and helped me remove what I didn't need and what I did need because of the thoughts that it would provoke. And the reason I asked you that question is because marijuana sometimes gave me anxiety in the things that I was like starting to indulge in that did not feel right, which would cause paranoia. And that's what I was trying to see if any during the initiation of your ceremony or during your ceremony you felt some type of anxiety towards your future.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like I said, in the first ceremony I did,
Yeah.
in the first ceremony, because every ceremony is different, much like, Sam, like Sam said, So that first ceremony, I did feel anxious. I was anxious to go to the next ceremony, to tell you the truth.
Sam, is everyone's first ceremony scary, sort of say?
No, it's not actually. My first ceremony was absolutely ecstatic.
Okay.
Never felt better in my life. Just
Can you
it's
explain?
it depends on what you need. I think that in my case, whatever whatever is suppressed comes out as well. So I generally tend to be very serious in my day-to-day life. And for me, what was suppressed was the joy and happiness, and it just all came out. And I just felt what I can only describe as a euphoria and like a full body orgasm for like 2 hours. There was nothing sexual about it, but it was extremely pleasant and then extremely insightful, and it was like showing me visions, basically that I know now were sort of outlining parts of my future, and yeah, it was amazing experience. My After that, my last ceremony, for example, just about a week ago, because I try myself and drink about once a month in one of the retreats. It was absolutely painful at first. I went to hell, literally, felt like I was dying, and then I came back, and it was absolute paradise. Like I just completed the whole cycle. And but we try and not focus on the ceremony and what you feel during the ceremony, because honestly it does not matter that much. What matters is what is the outcome, how do you feel after that, and what do you get out of it, and how do you integrate, and how you actually change your life. Because for people who
We get we lose him.
Did we lose him?
Sam,
Sam, I am.
are you with us, brother?
We'll see what's up.
Yeah,
We lost him.
I'm sending him a message right now.
Tell him to send us another link. We'll be right back, guys.
But actually, I mean,
we're good. We're still on, bro.
yeah,
We'll catch him back on. Yeah. Tell him to send us another link.
he is in the mountains, so
Yeah, he is out in the mountains, an hour away from Medellin.
yeah.
For this purpose, that's why I asked him during our conversation if he
had
a wired connection, because
yeah.
I knew this.
But we can actually continue, because there is some things like that I still like to share about my experience. While that first ceremony was in fact very painful, the next ceremony was completely different.
Yeah.
It was very much the same, right? Starting at 9 a.m. Took the cup, again purged, but this time I remember being anxious, right? Just because of what I had experienced the night before. And while I was sitting there just kind of waiting, right, for the medicine to take effect, I just, my leg was going crazy, right? Just kind of antsy, nervous. And I remember hearing this voice that said, "Stay still." And I'm thinking, okay, where is this coming from, right? And it goes my leg, right, kind of going crazy. And then again, stay still, stay still. And it wasn't until I actually listened and leaned in that I sort of went into this trance, is the best way I can describe, where I just didn't think I was in the physical anymore. It was more like a spiritual realm, because I was seeing just shapes and auras. I remember sitting there, and Brother Daniel, he's one of the spiritual leaders, very wise young man that came by, and he stood in front of me. He put his hand on my chest, and all of a sudden, right, I just feel like my chest vibrating, at a very high rate. I remember just breathing hard, inhaling and exhaling. And on one of those exhales, a couple words came out of my mouth that I didn't really intended to say.
Yeah.
And what came out was the peace of God, right? And la paz de Dios. He looked at me. He said, "You have it now, brother." I was just a messenger. He gets up and walks away, and I felt at that moment a peace that I hadn't felt since I was a kid, Rick. Like it was something that is just so hard to explain, because it had been years since I felt that kind of peace, and I just sat there and contemplated that peace. That entire night, I got different type of messages, much like Sam was, talking about and speaking of,
Yeah.
and it was a very, very profound experience, I would say, on that second ceremony. Much more gentle than the previous night, completely different, right? And so I think at that point I was just getting acquainted and actually accepting, because I feel that the more you fight it, the harder the journey it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what happens sometimes with the medicine itself. So
Hold on. We're trying to get Sam back on.
you see, did he send the link?
He did, but something's going on with his software.
Okay.
But well, he says he's gonna restart his computer.
Okay.
He said give him a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's celebrate the second ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one, you were having a lot of reflections. A lot of would you consider them negative reflections or just like truths of things that you were doing wrong?
I think it was just maybe guilt
Guilt.
that I was carrying.
Hmm.
And yeah, that just reflecting internally, right? And it's harder to take a look sometimes, man. It really is. It's so easy to get distracted, right? I mean, especially in this society that we live in, where it's instant gratification. So many different distractions. It's easier to hop on and throw on some Netflix or go out and drink or whatever to distract your mind from the fact that there is some internal work to be done.
Right.
Because that's really hard to do, man. It really is. And with that first ceremony, I had no choice but to sit there and take it for hours.
How long was your first? How long would you consider?
Like
Do you know how long?
it was about 8 hours
Yeah, of just constant.
and constant excruciating
Were you
pain.
were you seeing visuals?
I was more than anything feeling.
So did you have your eyes open?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
did, and
yeah.
you didn't see visually
No, initially I did, but after, that was initially at the start, but then after it was nothing but just
feeling.
feeling and sitting there and taking it. And, it's just, I remember just wanting to crawl out of my skin, man. I wanted to leave. I was thinking, I'm tomorrow first thing. I'm jumping on a taxi, going back to Medellin airport, and going back to KC. I don't want to know nothing about this retreat. This is the wrong idea. I am going to I could potentially die up here in this
Right.
mountain, and nobody's gonna find me. I mean, like your mind just starts going all over the place.
Right.
But I did have an interesting experience there towards the end of that night because I remember while I had lost everything, I remember looking up and there's I mean, Colombia has one of the most beautiful like just night skies,
Yeah.
right? And these beautiful mountains. And so, I mean, you guys got to see the retreat there. I mean, at night it just lights up with nothing but stars. But there's this bright star, man. I remember looking up in the sky and having this just, this epiphany or realization, whatever you want to call it. Where I probably had lost everything at the time, but like I still had my connection with the creator. Like I was not completely alone, you know what I mean? And I got a lot of love, like I said, from just people in the retreat, that I call them brothers now. We still to the day, keep that communication. They every so often revisit the retreat and they send messages, hey, when are you guys gonna be back in, Colombia and things like that. So I remember the sun coming over the mountains too, because it was right around 5, 6 when finally medicine starts wearing off, and it's just another sort of message, right? That while it was a long dark night, there's always you know a next day, where the sun comes out, and there's gonna be those moments in life, right, where it's not all gonna be sunshine and rainbows. You're gonna have to get through some dark nights, but they don't last forever. They don't last forever.
Hold on. We got another invite from Sam.
Let's see.
Let's see. Just bear with us, people. Dude, this microphone's got a mind of its own. It just like doesn't want to stay put.
Oh man,
These are the type of things we deal with.
that's all good. The struggle's real.
The struggles are real. What makes it hard is that I don't have a director doing all the behind the scenes stuff. I do it all myself.
You do a good job, man.
Just-
I really do admire what you're doing here with this with this podcast. I've seen a few that you've done here in the recent past, and I just see you evolving, Rick. So
Thank you.
keep up the good work, bro. I really like what you're doing here.
Can you?
What's up, guys?
Hey, what's
You're-
up? We got some back.
What the hell happened? I have no idea what happened.
Oh man, hold on.
What was the last thing you've heard me say?
We don't. I don't know.
What was we were talking about? I think we were talking about the experience that everybody has and how it's different. You were talking about
Oh,
your
yeah.
own experience and how your first experience was.
Yeah. So the question was, what was my first ever experience?
It was.
No,
it was.
I asked if everyone's experience was scary at the beginning, their first experience, and
Yeah.
Okay.
you were elaborating on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
So
yeah.
what we can do is just if you record this part,
No, it's
we'll just
okay.
connect.
We kind of covered other topics while you were off, so let's just jump right back into it.
Okay. So we're continue recording
We're still
nonstop.
recording, nonstop.
Non-stop.
Okay.
We keep it going.
So what I was saying, yeah, my first experience was pleasant, but then no two experiences are same. And I described my last experience, and I probably had like 40 of them in the last 4 years. Everyone is somewhat different, but the important part is how do you feel after? Like what does it do to you? How does it improve your life? A lot of people focus a lot on having a pleasant experience, or like focus a lot on having visions, but what they need to focus more on is like how to actually improve their life, and it just so happened to be the most difficult experience and the most painful ones, like the one Dennis had on his first night. Those are actually some of the most productive ones. So we don't look for bad trips or good trips. We look for productive trips and unproductive trips. And I could talk more about how to instigate a productive trip and like how to navigate your psychedelic experience in such a way to make it more productive if you guys are interested.
Yeah, but by all means, yeah. I
Yeah.
think people that are interested in this medicine and this modalities, probably want to hear, more details about that, right? Because in reality, this ayahuasca, revival, if you want to call it that. I mean, because this is more and more known anymore. It's more and more known anymore, and people are curious about it. There is actually research now around the topic. I don't know if you ever heard of the Heroic Hearts Project, Sam.
Something to do with veterans, right?
Yeah, yeah. Which we'll get a little bit more into that, but they've been doing some research around plant medicine and how it helps with, with
PTSD.
PTSD,
Depression.
depression, anxiety, and a few other things. But yeah, but like navigating through that experience where you're able to get the most out of. I think it'd be some people be interested in knowing.
So yeah, as I said, in my opinion, there are no bad trips or good trips. There are productive ones and unproductive ones, and the only way, or one of the very few ways to make your experience unproductive, is to resist the medicine itself. It's like if you're going, you mentioned ego, Dennis, and the part of the healing is where your ego gets dissolved, and the ego, think about it as this like protection system, like a firewall of your consciousness. It gets dissolved, and that this is what allows you to go and get access to all those hidden memories and traumas and start resolving them. But the problem is, the ego does not want to be dissolved. It's like it's grasping on, and if you allow it, and at this point you start telling us as facilitators, like, I don't really like this experience. Like I want it to end. The reality is that it's not going to end, and you resisting it. It's a kind of like a fight between your ego and the ayahuasca. Your ego always loses, and the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get like a mental beating from the plant, and then eventually it will sort of beat you into submission. So it's better the better attitude is to let go and to release and to accept and surrender to the medicine, and then it will lead you to beautiful things. And it does not mean that your trip will be negative. As I was saying when our call got cut off, uh, sometimes your ayahuasca experiences can be extremely pleasant and insightful at the same time. But yeah, whatever experience you're having, the only way out of it is through. So if you want it to end, watch the whole movie, and then in the end, it will end.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I agree with you 100% on everything you said. And one thing that I like to definitely highlight and tell people about is that ayahuasca is not necessarily a silver bullet, right? Like it's not gonna. It's more like peeling layers of an onion, right? It's just, as you get into it and you figure things out about yourself, there's more to dig in, and it's ongoing work. Is that reintegration part that Sam's talking about is so true, because I didn't really see most of the benefit until after, months after, even including, you know.
That's crazy because I think a lot of people, I don't know why, but like my first experience of that type of treatment or that type of healing comes from marijuana. There's a lot of paranoia, or what people would call paranoia, but I feel like it was an exaggeration of what I was already concerned about. That after my marijuana trip, within months or 2 months, that stuff that I thought about while I was in that situation, it was still lingering, and it was starting to like unroll. That's why marijuana for me has never worked like other people use it. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Because I feel like with me, it has a more profound
Mm-hmm.
effect to me, and the people that know me know that because I've become completely different when I'm on it. I'm not giggly. I'm very thought processing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Marijuana can be psychedelic, and marijuana can also be used as a healing modality with like proper ceremonial take to it, proper set and setting, good facilitators, good integration. Because marijuana, especially the sativa, that's like high on THC, it can be not completely. It's not like considered a traditional psychedelic, but it comes very close. And once again, like there is a tradition behind it. There is a tradition in India for use of marijuana and for spirituality. And uh, so yeah, for some people, like I personally don't smoke marijuana regularly, and whenever I do, it's for some form of therapeutic use, like whether it would be body pain or relaxation. I think marijuana can be very powerful, and it's a pity that people abuse it. Like what we talk about that indigenous medicines like ayahuasca, tobacco, coca, even chocolate. Like those were all medicines. But then people came, Westerners came, took tobacco, took it out of the context, took away the ceremony, took away the tradition, and then it became what it is now. A substance of abuse that not does not cause healing but causes pain. Tobacco can be used for so many things. It can be used to connect to your ancestors, can be used to like clean yourself spirituality. Taitas and shamans use tobacco to see things that they would otherwise wouldn't be able to see. Same thing with the chocolate, right? It was a ceremonial, traditional, sacred medicine. We took it, added some sugar and milk to it. Now we abuse it and we get fat. Same thing happened to coca. Coca is an amazing medicine, a very nutritive plant. They took it out of context, made cocaine out of it. Now we're fighting drug wars. And it's all about the use, it's all about the intention, and it's all about the tradition. If you take marijuana and you make a ceremony for it, you treat it with respect, you set an intention, you have somebody there to guide you. I can absolutely believe it can be a very therapeutic modality. But if you just smoke it every day, whenever, he kind of loses it and then starts harming you, because it's no joke. It's a very strong medicine. It's like some people are worried that taking ayahuasca will make people go mad and like lose their sense, and then not be normal anymore. But the reality is that a lot of people don't know that people who abuse marijuana, a lot of times they end up with psychosis and stuff like that. So no matter the medicine, mushrooms, marijuana, it has to be treated with respect and reverence. Yeah, ayahuasca is a little stronger, um, really hard to abuse just because it tastes terrible, and it can give you a spiritual beating. So it kind of has this protective mechanisms included
But they,
that avoid addiction and abuse. But I'm sure white people, I'm sure Western capitalism mindset can find a way to maybe extract something out of it to make it less painful and somehow more prone to addiction. Like that's just what the society seems to always want to do, like figure out the most palatable way
dang,
to a substance or a
I never even thought
medicine
about it that
or a
way.
drug. Yeah.
I never even looked at it that way. And because you're right, they did take the coca leaf and then turned it into something else with chemicals
Yeah.
to for it to
Like coca
become.
leaf, coca leaf is a great example. Like indigenous people used to chew it every day, and they would climb the mountains and build Machu Picchu's and like carry stones, because it gives you strength. It gives you like it's kind of like a stimulant, but it's not like coffee. It doesn't make you jittery, right?
It
And
was like the
people would,
energy. It was like the energy
yeah,
drink.
energy drink, but with no side effects. And then what they did was extract the cocaine and ruin it. But it's like coca is not just cocaine. Coca is 50 different alkaloids. Same about ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is not just DMT. Ayahuasca is many different things. So what the society tries to do is like simplify things and make them in those very purified versions of something that we can abuse. Same thing happened to alcohol. Like, if you drink chicha, like a very sort of basic form of alcohol, it's actually much less addictive than drinking pure spirit. That's been scientifically proven as well. Because then what we did, we like extracted alcohol from it, made it super pure, and the purer it is, the more addictive it is. So yeah, just I went on a little side rant, but
No,
yeah.
but you're spot on. You're spot on because anything can be weaponized, and I liked what you touched up on the fact of that setting is everything, because you're right. I mean, DMT, let's say here in a Western society, could turn into a psychedelic experience, but in Colombia in the mountains with the right setting and the right people and spiritual guides, it's a spiritual journey, and that's what the difference is, and so I think that some people can abuse it, and there's probably some of that out there, especially now in this introductory state, where people might think they know about the medicine, and try to introduce it. You could really end up messing somebody up if you don't know what you're doing. I was just fortunate enough that I wound up at La Huera retreat, and that my spiritual guide was Taita Gonzalo, and I was surrounded by yourself and all these other people. Sandra, if she listens to this, that girl was God sent. She was like an angel at that time. She really did help me out so much, and I hardly even knew her. So it was just the setting is everything. I completely agree with you on that.
Sam, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between toad DMT, like the DMT that's extracted from the toad, compared to? I know that the effects last longer through the tea, but as far as the experience, is there any difference between the toad and the tea?
You're talking about
So
buffalo?
yeah, Bufo toad. I've personally never tried the bufo or the toad. I've tried cambo, which is something totally different, also like made of a frog. And the reason I have not tried it is because I'm still questioning whether it's traditional or not. And my philosophy to anything that can remotely be called a drug is only to take it when it's traditional. So when
That makes sense.
the bufo was kind of discovered maybe 30 years ago, or maybe rediscovered. If it's rediscovered and like they find some more proof of that, I'll probably try it. But yeah, so bufo is 5-MeO DMT. It's like a plant, no, like an animal version of DMT, and ayahuasca is MN-DMT. So it's like the difference between ayahuasca and bufo is as remote as between like ayahuasca and mushrooms, because like you can take psilocybin and also call it a DMT because they're all I mean, I'm not a scientist myself, but if you look at the molecules, they're pretty similar looking. So I know that actually Colombian ayahuasca jahe, I might be mistaken, but I've read somewhere recently that it actually contains small amount of 5-MeO DMT. That's why people say it's a little stronger than the Peruvian one, more intense but more short lasting. So not an expert, can't give you an opinion. Never smoked DMT either. The only other DMT experience I had was in a form of a Wilca, and Wilca is a San Pedro ceremony when they blow DMT snuff up your nose. And yeah, it was very similar to ayahuasca. So yeah, no opinion.
Got you.
Yeah. So one thing that I definitely don't want to skip over, and I want to talk about really because this is what actually motivated me to do this segment on ayahuasca. It's just how it relates to healing to PTSD for veterans, right? As I was mentioning earlier, this initiative, Jesse Gould, I believe he's the founder of this initiative, where they help veterans heal through plant medicine, right? But when I started looking a little bit into it, and there's some pretty disturbing data. There's some really disturbing data about veterans, for example, right? We lose 17 veterans per day to suicide, because of PTSD, right? And what they use for treatment is cognitive processing therapy and prolonged exposure therapy, along with pharmaceutical meds. But that's only like 30 to 50% effectiveness. That to me is just crazy, right? Because that's just goes to show you that there is a big void and people are desperate for help and healing. And if if this can be something that can potentially help somebody, that's the reason, that's the main reason why I decided to do this and share my story. And but one thing that I don't want to look over is also the safety component of this journeys, right? I mean, because there is a very like a strict diet that you're supposed to follow before you actually get into this. That setting the intention, as Sam was explaining earlier, is critical. And also certain medical conditions, right? I mean, if you have let's say heart disease, or high blood pressure, just to mention a few. I'm not a doctor, but I certainly think that that's worth touching on. Sam can probably elaborate a little bit more on some of those things.
So yeah, thank you for mentioning, as this was the main theme of our podcast, and as Ricardo told me, your podcasts are very long, so I'm not in a hurry to wasn't in a hurry to jump on the subject. But yeah, for some reason I have this passion regarding veterans. I don't really know why, because I'm not a veteran myself, and we do get people here occasionally. But even before meeting Dennis, and I created this group on Facebook, which is called Ayahuasca for Veterans. It's still basically in its embryo state, but my idea was to start and collect some information for veterans, maybe podcast episodes like this or interviews with veterans that have done ayahuasca and benefited. So we get, okay, on our retreat we get maybe one veteran a month or something like that. I always speak to them and try to sort of find how their healing journey was with this medicine. And I think right now we're at the stage where we need to educate and just collect information and process it in a palatable form, because obviously the problem is that there are veterans, and I know 100% they will be healed or get an improvement from ayahuasca specifically. I know it because I've observed it with the patients that came to our retreat. And the problem is that uh, it's so far off. Like, as a society, we're not ready to talk about that. It has not been discussed. There is no easy route to go from being a veteran to doing ayahuasca. It's kind of like, you would consider things like ayahuasca and psychedelics as something like hippie, and that's like on the opposite spectrum of where a military person might be. So I think that the biggest job that needs to be done is sort of breaching that gap and creating the information and some way of, like, you know uh, an easy transition from a veteran to somebody who is ready to do ayahuasca responsibly, and taking it seriously and actually doing the work like integration, because all of that is something you could say like woo woo and spiritual and somewhat on the feminine side of the spectrum, and this is what I'm trying to understand. And this is why when I found out Dennis was a veteran, I was immediately, because I didn't know at the retreat, I was like, Dennis, let's talk. And yeah, I'm very passionate about it because a lot of people die and they don't have to die. And veterans, they're looking. So here in Medellin, we have a lot of veterans that come over. And as I spoke to Ricardo, he said it's cool to talk about those kinds of subjects. They come to Medellin for drugs and for women. And the reason they do it is because they are looking for an escape from the pain in drugs, in alcohol, in, paying for sex and that kind of stuff. And I know that what I would want them to do is come for alcohol and drugs, but stay for ayahuasca. Because
Yeah.
even though in some people's minds ayahuasca is a drug, it is not. It's only been called a drug for the last 30 years because of the Nixon's administration mistake where they put it on a category 1, which is a terrible mistake, and it'll probably take us hundreds of years to recover from. But it was always a medicine for thousands of years, so that's what matters. And yeah, if we can somehow find a way to get more veterans into ayahuasca, I'm sure we can gradually like fix the problem. And I think that there's a bit of resistance on the side of government. There always was, about even acknowledging the fact that things like PTSD exist. Because one thing is healing, and the other thing is, continuing on those wars, some of which are unnecessary, most of which are unnecessary. And I'm afraid that people who do ayahuasca will come to the same conclusion you come on doing any psychedelics, really, is that killing other people is just not a solution and is not even an option. It's just because one of those realizations that, as I was describing in my first ever psychedelic trip, I had a vision, right? I had this hobby when I was doing arm wrestling. And I had the vision that I was arm wrestling the strongest arm wrestler in the world, or one of the, famous ones. And then I had this realization that I can win him. I can win anyone. It's like, there is no limit. And then I realized that his face became my face. And I realized I can't win him. He can't win me, because we really are just one thing. And it's one of the realization people get on psychedelics, that we are all connected. If you think about it, we all come from this earth. We all come from this planet. We're all humans. We're all living beings. We are all one organism, and just kind of like killing another person is like cutting your finger off in like a larger scale, like a planetary scale. So, and yeah, when you work with psychedelics like ayahuasca, you just get this realization. And we all know killing other people is wrong, but it's one thing sort of knowing it in your mind, and the other thing is knowing it in your heart. So I think the reason government might resist that is because they're afraid that people will not fight their wars any longer, and they wouldn't want to kill each other. So there will be a hard battle to win, but maybe if not in our generation, maybe in the next generation, we'll eventually come to that realization that we're all the same and wars are useless, and there won't be any more PTSD to fix after that. So that will be my dream about that. So yeah, that's why I'm so excited about it. And the format that I came up with a veteran friend of mine is that you said so let's say there's 17 veterans dying every day, as you said in the statistics you found. So we do a retreat for 17 veterans, and we come up with a buddy system where one day you're drinking, another day you're just watching over the other veteran, and sort of create this support system. And the idea is that, you start with 10 veterans, and then they go back, meet their veterans buddies, show them how they feel themselves, then bring 20 more, and then bring 40 more. And eventually, hopefully, I mean, not just our retreat, but other retreats out there that have reasonable prices that veterans can afford. Eventually, maybe we can make a dent, and then yeah, I'm really excited about that subject. I don't know exactly how to do it. I don't know exactly how we're gonna make it happen, but I know it's gonna happen.
You
So
know
I'm
that
convinced.
that's a very noble cause, man. Honestly, and that's the big reason of why I'm over here doing this podcast with you. You touch on so many different topics there that are just so important, and accessibility for sure. As you said, it is a Schedule One substance, so I mean, most people, to be able to do ayahuasca, have to go somewhere else, and hopefully they could find the right retreat. But. That accessibility, and the thing about it is they can't wait for the law to get caught up, to catch up to the healing of this medicine. Is they have to circumvent that somehow, to get the help they need while they still can. And so that's good that there's places out there, at least there's options out there like your retreat, to be able to facilitate that for them. And thanks for picking up that cause. Now, I want to, be clear. I am a veteran. I have not experienced war, but I have, I have people that I've run into that do have real struggles with PTSD, and it's and it is real, and it's life impacting, and they do need healing. They really do. So I hope that this
So, based on your experience, do you feel like it is something that could benefit uh, a veteran with PTSD?
yeah, I don't think it just stops at PTSD, but yes, it can. I think any kind of trauma, can be
I,
can help, right, to,
yeah.
to help any kind of trauma that you may be trying to process, and things of that nature. Yeah, I think that experience over at La Guera did change a lot of things and perspectives about how I view the world, and the reintegration part has just been ongoing. It didn't stop there.
Have you had any patients, Sam, that were diagnosed with PTSD?
We have a lot of veterans coming over. As I said, maybe one person per month on average,
Yeah.
and they report having some improvement. So yeah, that's why I'm a believer in the subject. Obviously, I think the people that are the most affected, and the people that need ayahuasca the most, are sort of in a way the least likely to come over, because you in order to come to that conclusion, you need to sort of make a journey already and discover ayahuasca and then come over here. And so in a way, we're still in a stage where we need to like try and working with more veterans. So I always wanted to organize a retreat for veterans only. I don't know yet how to get access to so many, but let's say 15 to 20 veterans and just do veterans only retreats. And the idea behind that is that sometimes on ayahuasca you sort of lose control, and I think some people might be uncomfortable with let's say having large amount of veterans, which are the people that have killed and know how to kill, like losing control around them. So I think that having that container of veterans drinking with veterans and actually a system where they all keep an eye on each other, and sometimes let's say if somebody needs to be pinned down, you have like trained killers versus trained killers. Yeah,
Right.
I know that doesn't sound really nice, but so maybe that's why this work hasn't been done yet, because there's this a little fear thing about like, yeah, I want to attract more veterans, but then like, what if somebody goes in PTSD mode where trauma comes up and they think they're getting killed, and they catch a chair and start seeing other patients as, or facilitators as somebody's trying to kill them. So I thought about it a lot, and that's why I kind of want to create this format
Right.
specifically
At
for
least
veterans.
start the dialogue, and and figure out how you can help, because there is a lot of cases, where you help them in your Facebook page. You go upload them all the time, experiences of people that go down to La Huera, and they have this just unbelievable experience and realizations, right? I mean, it happens time and time again. So obviously there's you know something very special happening up there in Colombia.
Yeah, so regarding the ayahuasca and the healing and PTSD or any other issues you might be facing, in order to have a productive and healing ayahuasca experience, you need to make sure that the medicine is of a very high quality and is done and prepared traditionally and observing all the rules and all the ceremonies. And then you need a right set and setting, a place that feels safe, a place that ensures that people can let go and allow their ego to dissolve and get their healing, and places that allow for good integration and using things like word circles, integration guides, and many other modalities. And last but not least, very important is the shaman itself, like a person that can give you the good medicine, but also will be able to guide you on that experience. And because it's hard to explain, but a big part of the healing is not just the medicine itself, it's the work that a shaman does. And it's really hard to explain in words, because it's um, yeah, you would call it something like magic, right? It's unexplainable. Uh, you can't see it, but people can feel the difference. So I know there are many responsible retreats around there. La Huayra, our retreat, is not the only one. Um, I know there's a lot of people who do that work with love, and they really care for the patients. And yeah, when if somebody listening to this podcast, finds about ayahuasca and wants to try, by no means, rely only on us. There are other good retreats, but once you go and do this research and you're finding for a good place, make sure you focus on those aspects that I just mentioned about, to make sure that, for example, like there are retreats where there will be a shaman, but or somebody who calls himself a shaman, and out of 10 people that call themselves a shaman, you're lucky if a one is the true one. Because in order to be a shaman, it's at least, first of all, you need to be an indigenous person. You need to be born in that tradition. You need to have access to an ayahuasca that your dad or your granddad planted, and that lineage, that training, and now you have like people that go on Facebook and watch a 1 month course on how to become a shaman and call themselves one. That's really irresponsible. So uh, definitely do your due diligence, do your homework when choosing a right place to go to for your healing, because I think unfortunately if it's not done right, it might not only not help you but maybe even make things worse.
Yeah, 100%. I think in that same retreat that I was in, there was a gentleman that came from a different retreat that didn't have the best experience, and he was wound up having to do more healing than if he hadn't really experienced it to begin with. And so, yeah, you're 100% about that. I mean, you have to be careful of who you go with, when it comes to experiencing ayahuasca for sure. You
Yeah,
know,
your ego dissolving, ego being your system of protection. It's a good thing because it can allow you to access all this trauma and start healing yourself. But if it dissolves in the wrong place where there are people that maybe want to put wrong ideas in your head, or rob you or rape you, then then you're not in a good place, because then you don't have the protection anymore. So always look for references, always look for people who've done it there before, because that's the best way, because you can yeah, nothing speaks better than the people's experiences there.
So, Dennis, you said earlier that you come from a Christian background.
right, right.
So, can you? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have this question, who come from a religious or Christian background, and they're wondering if it changes the direction and what they believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, before, we started this podcast, I started with a prayer because I want to make sure that the right message is being conveyed.
Yeah.
I am Christian. I've always been, and, I believe in Jesus, and that's what my faith is grounded on. And when I first considered this, that was one of my fears, is to go into this experience and come out with a different belief system.
Yeah.
So the fact that the ceremony was Christian in nature, um, it put me at ease, and I felt like I was at the right place. Much like I told you, that there's this synchronicity that Sam was speaking about when it comes to ayahuasca and this calling, right? I remember praying about it prior to going there, and I just asked for guidance because at the time I was in a dark space, and I didn't know if I was making the right decision or not.
Right.
And so um, I remember shortly after that I started getting some messages on WhatsApp on the group that was going, and I wasn't planning on going, so I just seen the messages come through, kind of ignoring them.
Yeah.
But then I glanced at it, and there's a number that was a 913963. My number is a 913963. Just the last four was different. I was asking in my prayer prior to going was for some sort of sign. And so I looked at it. I called the number. It so happened to be Sandra. She was from Kansas City but moved to Louisiana, and she's from Honduras. And she told me about her story and what she experienced, because I hardly knew anything about ayahuasca. I mean, everything that I had learned was actually online or seeing YouTube videos or whatever the case may be. But this was a person that I actually, talked to, that told me about her personal experience. So that changed things. So that kind of encouraged me to say, okay, well, let me see. I was thinking, let me see if I can get approved for vacation, because the retreat was coming up in like a week. And so last minute I asked my
No, no,
boss,
no. This is not a talk.
and he said, yeah. So he gave me the green light. So I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, uh, two things lined up. Now let me check the tickets to Medellin, and I happened to find a ticket for 650 that day, a week prior. So it just seemed like things were just lining up for this trip, and that that's where I needed to be, and in fact, that's why where I ended up. And and like I said, the retreat itself, the ceremony itself was Christian in nature in a way. You could say Tai Tai's belief system is very similar to mine, and not just that, man, but like the whole experience itself. I remember in the very last ceremony where I experienced my own death. Um, you know, I, um, I took a second cup, right? And that was after really talking to Tai Tai Gonzalo. I had my first cup. I kind of came in contact with myself for the first time. Where I knew for the first time who I was, and I had a conversation with myself, much like I'm having a conversation with you about our past and who I am, right? And things that I established that day, in terms of values, in terms of where I wanted to go, with my life, and to tell you the truth, with all my flaws and all of my mistakes and virtues and good decisions that I've made in my life, I was content with the person I found that day. Like I was, and so I remember one message in specific that I got from myself that day that just told me you can't go around life without knowing the names of the people that matter to you. Learn the names. And so I made an a point to go and talk to Tai Tai, and I thanked him for his spiritual guidance, and I asked him what his name was, and it so happens to be that his last name is the same as mine. So it's just too many
Too
things,
many things connected.
too many things connected that it's just hard to co-coincidence. You know what I'm saying? And so he said you're not here by chance. And I believe that. I honestly believe that I was not there by chance.
I believe that too. One of the things that surprised me when you went down there is that you called me, because I've had psychedelic experiences with mushrooms, and I know that when you are placed in that mental state, there's a lot of people that you don't need to talk to, are not good, for you, and the fact that you called me the first night to tell me about that experience, man, that meant something to me. You know what I mean? Even though I couldn't give you no advice because I didn't know, I have no experience with it. But just listening to you and knowing that you decided to call me was special to me.
Yeah, man.
Because I was supposed to be there with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And like, honestly, like that was a very lonely journey in terms of like, just going out there by myself,
Yeah.
not knowing anybody. And it was nice to have comfort in voice that I can relate to. You've always been able to relate to me, and you've always been able to say the right things at the worst times that were, and so I really appreciate your friendship, bro. You're more like family to me, and I got a lot of love for you, bro. I appreciate that, and for being there, for just listening. Sometimes you don't even gotta say it. Sometimes you just gotta, we just gotta vent, and I vented that day. And I got a little emotional talking about, this experience because it really did change a lot of things for me.
Yeah,
It
'cause
really
I
did.
remember you called me after every ceremony, and I remember the first time you called me, you told me it was the most excruciating emotional pain you've ever felt. And I could hear it in your voice. And you told me, I remember you telling me you wasn't sure if you were going to keep going with it. And
Yeah, it shook me to my core. It shook me to my
but
core.
gradually, I think the second day, I asked you how was it today, and you said it was a lot better. It was a lot better. Earlier you were talking about your second ceremony and how you were able to
Experience peace.
experience peace. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, brother Daniel, he came and, just sort of delivered that message for me, after putting his hand on my chest and just feeling that vibration. It's just some sort of energy, right? And you actually caught off around that time, Sam, but, I was explaining to Rick that I was very antsy going into the second ceremony. My leg was shaking. I kept on hearing this voice uh, telling me to stay still, and like I just kept on, I kept on moving, and it wasn't until I actually listened that I stayed still and I went into this trance, and I knew I wasn't in the physical anymore. It was more of the spiritual realm because I couldn't see nothing but shapes and auras, right? And but I could recognize that it was Brother Daniel's aura that was near me. Put his hand on my chest, it started vibrating, and a couple words came out, and one of those exhales, and it was La Paz de Dios, the peace of God. And I felt the peace that I hadn't felt since I was a kid, and I just sat in that peace and contemplated that peace. I got messages all throughout that night. The second message on the second message that I got that night was, las batallas se ganan de rodillas, which means you win the battles on your knees, meaning that when something is out of your way, out of your control, you pray on it. And now that I never really prayed before, I always prayed. I always read the Bible, my Bible verses. But I think that prior to these experiences, it was more of like like a checklist rather than that.
With the true intention.
Yes, exactly. And so I think I had some sort of like a spiritual blockage for a long time that didn't allow me to connect spiritually with my creator. And I could tell you that post ayahuasca, I've had experiences where I might be in the car, just thanking God for all of it,
Yeah.
for everything. And I experienced this gratitude to the point where I tear up. Like I'll be there just driving and just being thankful for everything. And my circumstances are less than favorable sometimes, but I don't see that. I see the future, I see the possibilities, I see where I'm going. I lean on my faith, and I just do my best, and there is this synchronicity in my life that now just I'm in awe sometimes of how God is moving in my life.
Have you noticed when you say synchronicity? So you do notice that, like after your ceremonies, things have lined up in certain ways where they connect,
Yeah.
like reminding you of some of the experience that you had during your ceremonies,
I don't know if
or is
necessarily.
it more so like a, because I've had experiences where I see something, right, when I had my shroom trip, and I couldn't quite understand what was going on, and then months later something would happen, and I would remember like, oh, that's what it was. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
Well,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there is that. There is that. There is certain things that I still reflect back on and think, oh man, that's what that meant.
yeah,
Because at the time when you're going through it, it's hard to make sense of it all.
yeah,
That's why Sam always provides his journals,
yeah,
and he says, hey, after every ceremony, write down everything that
yeah.
you've seen,
See,
everything that you experienced.
during my shroom trip, that's where I went wrong. Is I didn't have a journal and I had a phone, and I started feeling. One thing I realized about myself during that trip was that I was very aggressive as far as getting things done. I wanted things done because I've always had to do things on my own. This podcast did it on my own. You know what I'm saying? Anything that I've ever really wanted, I had to do on my own. So that's the way I treated people.
Yeah.
When they wanted something from me, I was like, okay, that's what you want? Then let's go. This is what we have to do. And I was pushing people away. And one of the things that I realized, or one of the things that I was doing while I was on during my trip, was I was texting those people.
Yeah.
I was, I was creating arguments in that moment, which I had to put my phone down because I was like, this is going to turn bad. I'm supposed to learn. And one of the things I wish I would have done was I would have wrote everything that I processed, because in that time frame that I was in there, I felt like my thoughts were going at 100 miles per hour, and I was only capturing maybe 5-10% of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No, it's those experiences are really just hard to process at the time. It comes to you after most of it. It really does. But and Sam actually told me that. He said you're gonna experience things months after. He said, this is not really the end of it, and it just allowed me to self reflect a lot more, um, and see my blind spots essentially. So there's been a lot of course correction, and behavior modification and different things that I, prior, maybe didn't just pay enough attention to or just didn't care to really do. I mean, it's so much easier to just go out and get drunk and have a good time and forget about really all the traumas, right? But I mean, the longer you prolong it, to deal with those things, that the more harm I think it is causing, not just to yourself, but to the people around you.
Yeah. How did you feel getting back into society after coming back from that? Was it different? I know being at the airport had to. It's just seeing people in general move throughout their day with the same consciousness coming from where you just came from.
Yeah,
Did
my
did you feel some type of isolation?
I was more than anything just exhausted. I remember feeling exhausted because the last ceremony took a lot from me. After speaking to Tai Tai Gonzalo, and him sharing his last name and having that connection and knowing that I wasn't there by chance, he said, "Are you ready for a second cup?" That's the first time I taken a second
So
cup.
is that Sam? Does that usually happen on the last night?
No, I mean after after 1 week of ayahuasca, you will be tired. I mean, it's kind of like
No, I'm
people
saying
compare.
taking the second cup the last day.
Yeah, during the ceremonies, it's we a lot of times some people take second cup. We even offer up to 3 cups per night. But yeah, it's very normal to be tired after 1 week
Yeah.
of ayahuasca. It's like a 100 years of therapy. It's a lot in 1 week.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I did take that second cup that day. It was my first time, and I remember Taita telling me to take it with intention, and I thought about my intention. I took it, and about 12, yeah, about 20, 30 minutes later, I mean, just put me on my ass. I mean, I can't really describe a different, something different to describe it. I remember falling, and I remember experiencing this battle, this internal battle where it needed me to let go, and I kept on fighting it, and I didn't want to let go. It essentially was trying to tell me that I needed to die, and that I just needed to take my last breath, and I was resistant to it. I did not want to. I didn't want to take my last breath, and finally I said, okay, okay, but I just wanted to see my daughter. I just wanted to talk to my daughter before, and I had this experience where I talked to my daughter through other people. It's crazy, and she was consciousness. She wasn't her. She was consciousness through other people. I said goodbye. I accepted my faith. I took my last breath. Then I remember that I just started kind of coming back into consciousness, like I blacked out for a little bit or something.
Yeah.
And they found me on this little hill, and I had ants that were kind of eating me up. They dust me off, and then I remember somebody's like, "Take this, drink it," and it was water. It was water with lemon. So I took 3 glasses of water with lemon. And Taita looked at me, squared in my eyes, and he said, "Are you ready?" And I said, I said, "For what?" And he's like, "Everything's coming out today." And I said, "Taita, whatever needs to happen now." He said, "Grab a seat, son." He starts doing his chanting, his ceremony, his prayers, and that moment, I something came to mind that I learned when I was 8 years old, and that was Psalm 91. So I started reciting Psalm 91 word by word, and I started feeling this urge, in my gut, to just want to, puke, and this substance came out, this dark, just puke, that came out, and it just felt relieving. It really did. It just felt like a load off, like a weight's been lifted. I felt tired. I felt lethargic, um, but I felt relieved.
Right.
Like all the shit that I had been carrying for years just came out that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was intense.
Yeah, this is interesting because sometimes when you drink ayahuasca, you puke, but together with your puke, some emotions come up, some heaviness that you carry. It just leaves your body, and you feel physically lighter. I wanna touch up on the subject that you mentioned about religion and psychedelics and Christianity specifically. There are many different traditions when it comes to ayahuasca. But Inga tradition, the tradition we work with, they are like a fusion between Christianity and the indigenous tradition, and it seems like a very good match. They really work well together. Gonzalo is very religious. He uses a lot of Christian symbology. He always uses crosses and the Psalms, and he likes statues of the saints and that kind of stuff. I don't know much about it, but I know one thing, that observing all of the patients that we have had, you get connected to God no matter what version of God you believe in. Like, you just get whatever you believe in, it gets enhanced. It's kind of like you go and you just get connected, and even more than that, people discover God first time ever on ayahuasca. You know, I myself pretty much was an atheist before that, and even though now I wouldn't say I'm Christian or anything really, but I just do believe in God now quite a bit, and I definitely don't believe any longer that when we die we just rot and sort of disappear. That's no longer part of my reality. I'm not exactly sure what happens, but I'm pretty sure this life here on earth is just a segment in some bigger picture, and that our souls are eternal. Another interesting thing about religion and psychedelics is that there's some science coming up now and some history that there might be a good reason to believe that Christianity in its infancy was a psychedelic cult, and it was based on LSD like substance that ancient Greeks used to consume. And there's culturally, every religion, every society in the past had some kind of psychedelic they were consuming traditionally to connect with God, to heal. And it's just that our Western society right now is pretty much the only society that doesn't have it anymore. Like, in the past we all had it, and it just, something happened, we lost it, and now we're getting reconnected. So it's nothing new. We've been tripping on things
Yeah.
since the beginning of
Since the
times.
beginning of
Since the
times.
beginning of time. Oh no, did we lose Sam again?
Oh man, I hope not. That was a very
That
interesting.
was yeah.
Man, that was a good topic, man. He touched upon a lot of things, and that's why I'm glad that we brought Sam on this talk, because I knew he was going to be able to add a lot of substance to the conversation. He's a very interesting and wise man. I know, and in order to put together the logistics of launching a retreat and mountains of Medellin, coming from Latvia,
Yeah.
right? I mean, not even speaking the language, and now to just really helping hundreds of people to come to healing through this ayahuasca plan. I mean, that's got to be a calling. If that's not a calling, I don't know what it is. But you go from making
But
all this
it's
money
a, it's a,
back in your country to just giving everything up to just up and start something new elsewhere where it's not even your homeland. I mean, that's pretty. It has to be a pretty strong conviction, don't you think?
definitely, bro, because that's a major change in life,
Yeah.
change of change of where he lived to where he's at now. I think he's trying again.
Okay. Well, bring him in.
Something's wrong with my Wi-Fi antenna on my PC.
I
But
think I think we got a lot from him, though. I mean, I told you, this guy, he just has a lot to bring to the conversation. I mean, he's obviously an expert on this field, and he himself will tell you he's not a shaman, right? He's a space holder, and the shaman himself, Tai Tai Gonzalo, he is from the tribe, and this tradition has been passed on for generations on his his family. It's pretty interesting, how the medicine works and who gets called to do it.
Is that why he was saying that in order to be a shaman, you had to pretty much have it in your family tree,
Right. A lineage.
lineage?
Mm-hmm.
He also mentioned that the root had to be grown by your family,
Have to be passed on and
passed
taught
on
and
and
taught.
taught.
Yeah,
That's very, yeah, man, that's crazy.
yeah. And in fact, that batch that he had for our that ceremony, I remember Tai Tai mentioning, it was one of the strongest batches he's ever made, and that one cup was equivalent to three. So we probably, I'm not sure if it made a difference, because I could tell you there are some people that took the medicine that didn't experience anything, and there are some people that took half a cup and just had just a mind blowing
I, I
experience.
think I think it probably I think it's coming back. I think it might have to do with. Do you think it might have to do with how much people weigh? Because I know there he we got him back. We got him back.
I'm back.
We got him back.
All right, all right.
So Sam, we're talking about. Dennis was mentioning that there were some people that didn't have the same experience as far as how it affected them. And I was just mentioning that, like with mushrooms, sometimes the weight, how much people weigh depends on how much they need to take.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I could take five, and someone who weighs half my weight could take five, and it'll be way more powerful for them.
Yeah.
Is that
Not with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is way less predictable. You can have a 300-pound guy that takes half a cup and trips the entire night, and you can have a 100-pound girl that takes three big cups and feels nothing. Um, it's also counterintuitive regarding that, one night you need one amount, another night you need another amount, and then normally the tendency is that the more you drink, the less you need, which is opposite. Like with mushrooms, if you take mushrooms every night, you'll need more and more every night to feel the same effect because you get tolerance. And with ayahuasca, you get something like reverse tolerance, and it's always very unpredictable. That's why before giving you a cup, Taita looks at you and then just gives you a cup, somehow like measuring something.
Measuring a spiritual sense. I don't know. That's why the spiritual leader is so critical.
yeah
And like when you see Tai Tai move through the ceremony,
yeah
is so crazy, man, because he knows where to be at what time
yeah.
and knows exactly what to do in certain circumstances.
I'm pretty sure he can read people. You know.
Oh yeah, he reads people and their experiences. I remember in particular that there was some people that were really having quite of experience, and there's that spiritual component, right? That he's able to somehow detect, go and do his ritual, do his praying, and he actually senses the urge to puke after, based on whatever energy or spirituality that he's picking up from that person.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making myself clear on that. Maybe Sam can elaborate a little more on that, because there's been some crazy experiences, right, Sam? And you could probably share some of those.
Sam, does purging affect the length of the trip?
No, not really. Um, Sometimes you take the medicine, not purge at all, and not feel it at all. Sometimes you take the medicine, purge 2 minutes later, and still have the full-fledged experience. So it's ayahuasca is really sort of difficult to understand. It's very unpredictable. But what Dennis was saying about the Taita, a lot of times when Taita remove something very difficult from someone during the ceremony, helping them release some kind of energies or entities or whatever you call it, he after that needs to puke. And sometimes when it's a really tough one, he has to do it a couple times while he's doing the work, and it's really also hard to explain. But then people describe, what was removed and how it felt from their point of view, and it's pretty impressive. Like the work he does is definitely really hard. Like being tight is no joke.
Can you share like maybe a particular experience just to kind of not necessarily mention the names or anything, but just to kind of break that in the context?
Oh yeah, one of them is that the girl he was doing the cleanse on, I don't know what she had, but it was something big, and he had to puke like 3 times, and then when he's done, he said like, I was almost ready to give up, and then somehow he managed to pull it off, and then she said that her aunt called her and she felt something. So basically, whatever was removed, it was kind of like intergenerational, at least like the entire family sort of had this thing. So a
You know,
big curse or whatever,
during
lineage sort of type thing.
one of the common things during exorcisms is people puking too,
Really?
people purging.
Oh,
And
interesting. I never heard.
my mom mentioned different color in the puke.
No.
Yeah, I'm just adding.
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, because
Well, a lot of
your
a
mom
lot of
is a healer.
ayahuasca.
My mom was a,
So
my mom was she played a big for her entire life. She's helped people heal through religion, and she's done a lot of what they call they're not called they're she didn't do exorcisms, but they're called like
Liberations.
liberations. You know what I mean? And where she would pray for people, and I've held people down myself, so I know that some of this stuff wasn't. It
Made
wasn't.
up.
It wasn't made up because I knew the people that were being affected, and I knew that they weren't acting. So, but
yeah.
what?
Well, a lot of ayahuasca experiences are like that. Some people need to release something and it comes out
Yeah.
in different shapes, and sometimes it looks a lot like exorcism. So, uh, but whatever you call it and whatever it is, sometimes it needs to be done, and after that, people feel amazing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we just go with it.
One thing that was very intriguing to me because I asked Tai Tai, I said, "Hey, Tai Tai, when you do the ceremonies, and you guys obviously are doing a lot more ceremonies these days, do you take the medicine?" And he says, "Yes." Then I go on to ask him. I said, "Do you purge every time?" And he said, "Yes." So I got to thinking, rationally and thinking, well, somebody that pukes that many times a month, I mean, will probably be dead by now, And I said, how does that work, And he said, because ayahuasca is not harming, it's cleansing. He said, right? And I mean, if you see Tai Tai Gonzalo, like for his age, he looks solid. I mean, like this guy looks as healthy as he can be. He's very spiritual. He's very like, he's got this very like uh kid kind of sense where he's just very, you know there's a bit of gosh, it's hard to describe. It really is hard to describe. He's very spiritual, in a sense, in a way. I asked him that, and so it's interesting that ayahuasca, even after serving it so many times per month, and puking and all that, is not harming.
No, it is a medicine, and it's not just DMT. There's a lot of other things happening, and we don't yet have science really to explain all of that. But it seems to be very healthy and very protective. Definitely neuroprotective. You notice, Gonzalez 64. He's very sharp. Yeah, the work he does requires a lot of concentration and sleepless nights and all this stuff. Doesn't seem to affect him.
Nothing.
And there's this famous Colombian Taita. I think he's 110 years old, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been, he still does the ceremonies, and like some of his ceremonies, they have up to like 100 people, and he seems to be totally fine with that. Just running around and doing this heavy work at that age. So whatever ayahuasca does definitely seems to be good for aging.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned something about. I remember you mentioned something about because I was dealing with a lot of digestive issues, and you said that it actually helped with digestive issues. I was looking a little bit more in detail on some of the benefits and some of the like most current research that has been done around ayahuasca, mainly because of it's hard to ignore, right? The benefits of the medicine anymore. So it says that it protects brain cells, stimulates narrow cell growth, improves memory, and activates a protein that blocks neurodegeneration. Like I just found that pretty interesting because, when they talk about DMT and this any kind of psychedelic, they in the past the message has been um, it's bad for you, it's harming, right? It's just that programming that you kind of grow up with and think that you are going to have some sort of brain damage by taking this substance, right? But in reality, it seems to be that there is more benefits than
Yeah,
not.
it's opposite of brain damage, right? As the science says, there's science now about DMT and like migraines and then anti-inflammatory effects. And I mean, we had all sorts of people healing all sorts of different things, from fibromyalgia, like unexplained body pains just going away, and treatment-resistant depression going away. People with memory problems also reporting improvement in their,
Have you
memory, concentration, ADHD, you name it, mental health, lots of progress. So it's like we don't have the science yet to explain everything, but like it just works. So we stick with it, and
have you
indigenous people knew what they were doing.
have you ever seen the graph that shows a normal brain, and then the graph that shows a brain on psilocybin?
No.
You haven't seen
Oh
that?
yeah,
I have
yeah,
to.
yeah. The connections.
The connections, it's a
It's like a rainbow.
way more active on psilocybin, and that's why they say psilocybin can reconnect. Like that's why you remember things that you would have probably forgot because it connects. I don't know what they are, but it connects a lot more things in your brain than on your normal basis. You know.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, that's probably. I mean, it's been FDA approved now for clinical trials. Starting with psilocybin. I don't think that I don't know that ayahuasca is, but they're starting to take notice that there's actually some benefits with dealing with this type of modalities in plant medicine. You know, so I hope to see more of it. I mean, here in Missouri, I don't know if you knew, but like and at Mizzou, in November. Wow, that's crazy. Here, this past November, they had a
See?
psychedelic. They had a psychedelic conference actually at the at Mizzou. Is about an hour and a half from here, and they just talked about how to really utilize psilocybin in a therapeutical setting, and also what the benefits and all that. So they're trying to make some pretty strong arguments, in favor of. So I wouldn't doubt it that eventually is going to become acceptable. But I just hope, like you said, Sam, that we don't find a way to weaponize this modalities, and that we actually use them in a responsible way. To find healing for people that need it. That's more than anything what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm less worried about it being legalized or not being legalized because I think it will become legalized eventually. I'm more worried about once again people just isolating certain compounds and use separating them from the tradition that it comes from,
Mm-hmm.
and losing that, and then eventually it will lose its roots and sort of run astray, and then problems will come. So it's like I just hope that if they take ayahuasca, they take it together with the tradition and not just some molecule or a collection of molecules.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
So do you think ayahuasca kind of does the same thing that psilocybin does as far as the connectivity within your brain? It,
Yeah, very
because,
similar. Very similar. The connectivity with you within your brain, definitely, it just kind of like resets it and like jacks it up. Like you definitely feel pretty sharp doing ayahuasca regularly. Like the brain is definitely running smooth. But connectivity within the brain, like I mean, you feel connected to the entire universe. I mean, there's a
right.
lot of things.
So the
Yeah,
top,
yeah, yeah, I've seen that.
the top. Hold on, let me get closer. The top graphs is supposed to show a brain, a normal brain, and then you can't see it that clear. But the bottom graph is supposed to show what a brain on psilocybin looks like, as far as
Yeah,
the connections it makes. There you go.
yeah,
And it's like almost double or three times more.
It's
yeah,
almost,
yeah.
it's almost like you're definitely able to tap more into other parts of your consciousness that you otherwise wouldn't have had access to.
Well, there's a lot, yeah, and you're also able to dissect maybe a thought that you had further, deeper than what you normally do on a regular basis. I feel like we don't function consciously that effective, and when you're on this type of substance, it allows you to go further into that,
Mm-hmm.
and you can analyze what it is. Therefore, you're able to make a more conscious decision about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more profound in the long run because it stick with you. Because you know what I'm saying. It
Mm-hmm.
was just a lot more profound than just thinking about it at a 10% rather than actually going all the way down.
Yeah.
Because I feel like on a daily basis we're so on our daily routine that we're not making conscious choices anymore. Like we're just robots pretty
On
much
autopilot.
walking autopilot. Sometimes I drive to work, I'm like, dang, I did not pay. I don't even know how I even got to work.
Yeah.
I
Seriously.
autopilot the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
But that makes us not have the time to contemplate consciously our choices and the things that we are investing our time into.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, they said that 95% of your brain is the subconscious mind, and 5% is the consciousness. So, majority of the stuff that you do it, without really even thinking about it. The brushing your teeth, driving,
Muscle
just
memory.
all of it, right? And so it's like learned behavior that you just kind of consciously learn and then internalize, and then all of a sudden you become this person and becomes part of your character, and then you don't even realize because it's so subtle, right? It's a subtle process. Sometimes you don't
Yeah.
realize how you arrived there. You just got there, and
Yeah.
and and now you got things
You don't
that
know how many people you put in danger on the way there,
exactly
but
no seriously, and yourself and whatnot, and,
yeah,
and so that's why it's important to deal with those things.
yeah,
The earlier that you deal with them, the better it is. I feel that, as you get older, the more experiences you accumulate through life, if you don't deal with the initial, part of yourself that needs to be dealt with, it's like the more you have to deal with in the end. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I mean, here in my, close to 40s now, I'm like in this, I hit this crisis, right? Of like, man, what the hell, what the hell, who am I, right? I
right.
start asking all these questions that, man, I wish I would have, tried to ask earlier,
Yeah,
but, definitely this experience in Colombia has allowed me to do that, and, help me just kind of just break a somewhat of a barrier, and start moving towards, my purpose. Start moving towards, being of value to people, and that's where I really find that I belong. In whichever way, shape, or form that looks. Now it's in real estate.
yeah.
I find a lot of, comfort, and I find a lot of joy in helping people, and I love doing it, and I much like like Sam said, man, I do it for free if I could, right? Because you just you love doing what you're doing so much,
Yeah.
and where the monetary piece just doesn't matter as much anymore, right?
Yeah.
And it actually, it's funny because when you focus on the value of what you do, everything else just comes.
Comes into play.
Yeah, everything else just comes.
That's what I'm hoping with this podcast, man. I'm just.
Man,
I mean, I never in my life imagined that you were going to take that trip and that we were going to have Sam on the call and we were going to be having a conversation legitimately about ayahuasca. That was not in my plans whenever I started this thing. So this is a blessing for me. It's a blessing to have Sam on this as well and express his point and views. So thank you for coming, man.
Well, thank you for having me, and Dennis, thank you for connecting us and making it all happen. And let's hope some people see this, and maybe it will plant a seed in their mind about this option of healing when they need it, they'll be ready. They'll be ready to take it and get out of the rut and fix themselves. So you know it's hard to predict where it's going to go or whose life it might change, and whose life that person will affect. And so as long as you spread the message and it's the right one, then
Yeah.
it will come out well on the other side.
yeah, absolutely. There's a few, something I definitely want to touch on, before we wrap things up, and that's, just, do your research.
Yeah, definitely.
Like and don't try to force things.
Question. I got a question about research. Uh, so you did mushrooms after you did ayahuasca. Would you recommend people experiencing some type of psychedelic before they do ayahuasca?
That's hard to say. It's just, it depends on the individual.
Yeah.
Some people go straight to the ayahuasca, but psilocybin is a lot more gentle. So I mean, it's not.
Cause I
I would say it's probably, if it was like a rite of passage, if you're really trying to get into plant medicine and experiment to see, how it works and how it heals, then mushrooms. I hate the term magic mushrooms, by the way, because it just has this bad connotation to it. But psilocybin is probably the most gentle, approach, and then ayahuasca, is more like but it's hard to say because in my experience that's what it was, but in other people's experience they might experience something like Sam said, where he
yeah.
had this amazing experience the first time he did
Well,
it.
the reason I ask is because I know some people have never. They never experienced a good or a bad trip, especially on any psychedelic. Even shrooms compared to
Yeah.
marijuana is not the same thing.
Yeah, but
It's a different
but
level.
the setting is definitely important. I mean, because if you were going to go and experiment with psilocybin in your basement,
It's not gonna return.
it's not. You're not gonna get the kind of healing that you're looking for. So you really need to. That's why I said do your research, get plugged in with people that know what they're doing. Don't force things, and when the calling is there, you'll know. Use your intuition, and just kind of. I've always leaned into my faith, and that's kind of what how I made my decisions, and so I can't speak for anybody else, but I would recommend at the very least know where you headed. The retreat is very important. Who you doing it with? Setting. That's all very important. And Sam, if you wanna, maybe even let people know how they can learn about your retreat there, so that they can reach. And also one last thing. Awakening Underground is one of the podcasts that I actually follow, and it was very educational. And a lot of what we discuss in terms of information is credited to them, because I learned a lot from that podcast. So
Yeah, Dennis, good words. Psychedelics are a great healing tool, but it's not not a tool to mess with. Do it responsibly. Make sure you know where you're going. Make sure you know what you're doing. Regarding what to start with, I started with ayahuasca. It was my first ever psychedelic, my first ever drug, even arguably, if you can call it drug. Some people do. And I had a pleasant experience. And yeah, it's all about doing it for the healing, and mushrooms can be very beneficial as well. I'm a big fan of microdosing. I think all of those modalities have their use. So whatever calls you first, just do it, and but don't be afraid. It's not gonna hurt you if you do it right. And regarding where to find us, our website is lawira.com, LAWAYRA.com, or our old website as well still links to the same place. It's ayahuascainColombia.com. Colombia with the COLO, because like a lot of Americans pronounce it Colombia is like a state.
When
Find us.
it airs, we can probably tag them, right, Rick?
Yeah, I was gonna tell you, Sam, to just message me the websites, and I will post them in the
We'll do
description. Yep.
we'll do it right now.
Is there anything you'd like to cover before we go?
Um, just message you the website.
Okay.
I I just um, I just believe that everyone in their life should try ayahuasca. It's something that I think is missing in our society, and I think I would love to be alive in a place or in time where everyone have done ayahuasca and like wake up one day and know that every person has had this experience, and I think the world will be a different place. So I just hope that we're heading that way. Um, so if this podcast convinced some of you guys who are listening to try ayahuasca or try psychedelics, or at least consider spirituality or some kind of spiritual experiences in your life, and start exploring, because in the end of the day, we're not just meatballs rolling around this planet just trying to like eat some food and procreate and then die. Like, that's not just it. There is something more. And there are many ways to discover what more there is, but the one that I found for myself, and the one that's the most straightforward and the most, it's quick, it's fast. There's a lot of extra acceleration, so sometimes it comes with some discomfort, but it is ayahuasca. One cup can change your life, and for the better. So that would be my words of advice. Just whenever in doubt, drink ayahuasca, guys.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you so much again, man, for your time. I really appreciate it. Rick, I appreciate you hosting, man, and give Taita Gonzalo my regards. I'm hoping I can see you again this 2023, sometime in the spring or the summer. We shall see each other again, my brother.
Come back and bring Rick.
Yeah, yeah,
Next
that's
next
the
episode
idea.
we'll do. Next episode will be live from
Yes.
Colombia,
Live from Colombia.
and Rick can talk about how his experience went.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I would love to be able to actually know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this,
Yeah.
rather than comparing it to psilocybin.
Yeah,
Yeah. We'll make it happen, man, for
Yeah.
sure. But God willing, I appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both.
appreciate you too, guys. Thank you.
All right, we're just gonna close this out. Say bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you guys for your time too.
Yeah.
Appreciate the listening.
Till next time.